the strangeness didn't end there. In one corner of the bedroom, a transparent image began to materialize. A ghostly face, etched with the lines of age and wisdom. It was the face of an old woman, her features soft and hauntingly familiar. When I was a child, my late uncle's chilling ghost stories had a way of seeping into my young mind, filling it with vivid images of the supernatural. His stories were so convincing that, as a kid, it was impossible not to believe in the eerie possibilities he presented. He really loved freaking out his little nieces and nephews. The centerpiece of many of my uncle's eerie narratives was my grandmother's old house, a relic from the past that stood a short distance up the road from the family cemetery. It had a history intertwined with the supernatural, making it the perfect setting for his stories. Several family members had passed away within its walls, including my grandfather and my grandmother's 2 infant daughters who had met untimely deaths. My grandmother often spoke of beings that visited her at the foot of her bed, their nature a mystery. Ghosts or angels, no one could say for sure. Most of the family dismissed her accounts as hallucinations, but my mother and I believed her, and my uncle frequently brought her visions to life in story form. Among the many stories I remember him telling, there were 2 in particular that left an indelible mark on my imagination. The tale of a mysterious light that wandered through the cemetery at the witching hour, and a ghost that had visited multiple generations there. Over the years, however, I had 3 paranormal experiences of my own, all focused around that same house, making me wonder if perhaps my uncle's tales had been more than just spooky stories. My very first encounter happened on a weekend when we were visiting my grandma. I was just 7 or 8 years old at the time. I was sitting on the living room floor playing with toys. Sometime later, I looked at my mum and told her I had to go to the bathroom. When I reached the bathroom door, something caught the corner of my eye that totally freaked me out. I saw an apparition so shockingly real that I froze in place. Descending the staircase just beyond the bathroom door was someone wearing a pair of old light-coloured brown pants, accompanied by heavy brown work boots. I couldn't see above the waist, and I knew no one was ever allowed to go upstairs. These were not the attire of the living. They were spectral, anachronistic remnants from another era, like something out of the 1920s or 1930s. My heart raced and I struggled to process the impossible sight before me. The pants descended the stairs with an eerie, deliberate slowness, then stopped. Panic surged through me. I slammed the bathroom door shut and frantically looked for a place to hide. My heart was pounding relentlessly. My mind raced, trying to make sense of the situation. Could it be my late grandfather, who'd passed away when my mother was just 9 years old? I didn't have long to think about it before I noticed that the bathroom door wouldn't open. It had no lock, yet I found myself locked inside, desperately kicking and screaming for help. Minutes felt like hours as I fought to open the stubborn door, my cries for help going unheard. Strangely, the living room, where my parents, grandmother, and aunt were gathered, was just on the other side of the bathroom wall, but no one seemed to hear my frantic cries and screams. The door finally opened and I bolted out of there, running back to the living room. I shut the hallway door with such force that it interrupted my family's conversations. They looked at me puzzled by my sudden entrance. The freaky part is that no one had heard my screams or me pounding on the door. I never told anyone about my encounter, including my parents, because I didn't want to be thought of as some nutcase. My aunt, a stubborn old woman who lived alone in the old house, had become increasingly susceptible to falls. She resisted using her life alert device and seldom wore it around her neck. It was a daily source of worry for our family, and eventually, the day came when her other two sisters could no longer ignore the need for intervention. They made the difficult decision to admit her into a nursing home, an act she strongly opposed. My mother had spent several nights with her before the dreaded decision was made, hoping to prevent the inevitable move to the nursing home. But despite our best efforts, it was too late. My aunt was placed in the care of the facility, leaving her home empty. With my mother already staying there, I decided to move in, with my aunt's permission, as I felt uneasy about my mum being alone. A good friend of mine, ever helpful and eager to assist, joined me in the endeavour. To save money, my aunt graciously allowed us to use my grandmother's old house to store our belongings temporarily. It was a nostalgic place, one filled with memories of my family's past. However, it also harboured a reputation for being haunted, a fact that had fueled countless ghost stories over the years. As my friend carried the first set of boxes into the house, she suddenly dropped them and ran back to where I was standing next to my truck. Her face was as pale as a ghost, and she was breathing heavily, as though she'd just sprinted a marathon. She stammered, "As soon as I entered through the back door and into the hallway, I heard 3 loud knocks. It gave me the heebie-jeebies." I raised an eyebrow, initially skeptical of her story. The house was old, and it had always been a hub for ghostly tales. Still, something about the intensity in her eyes made me reconsider. The look on her face seemed genuine, and I couldn't ignore the shiver that ran down my spine. After all, in a house with such a haunted reputation, anything was possible. We decided to proceed with the move, albeit with some caution. We continued to transfer our belongings into the house, but neither my mother nor I heard anything out of the ordinary. There were no mysterious knocks or unexplained sounds to be found. It was almost as if the ghosts, if they existed, were selective about their interactions, perhaps only revealing themselves to certain people. Over the following weeks, my friend continued to visit, offering her support and company. She helped with chores around the house, like cutting the grass and weeding the garden. One sunny afternoon, while I was preoccupied clearing away some overgrown brush, I noticed her demeanour change. Her complexion paled once again, and her eyes darted nervously around the yard. Concerned, I approached her and asked what was wrong. She hesitated before finally confessing, "I keep feeling like I'm being watched. And when I looked up at the second-story window, I saw a face. My heart skipped a beat, and I felt a chill wash over me. This wasn't the first time she'd been unnerved by the house's presence. She seemed genuinely frightened and on edge. The apparition she described scared the crap out of her, making her feel profoundly uncomfortable and unwelcome. After that day, my friend's visits became increasingly infrequent. She no longer came over to hang out, and when we met, it was always at a neutral location or through phone calls. The experiences she had in the house had left an indelible mark on her, and the apparitions that seemed to inhabit the old house had effectively driven her away. As the months passed, I never heard the strange knocks or witnessed any spectral faces myself. But the stories and encounters of those who had remained lingered in my memory. The house seemed to harbour secrets that were only known to a select few. A world of apparitions and unexplained phenomena that had kept the family's imagination alive for generations. I couldn't help but wonder if the ghosts were the lingering spirits of my grandparents or other, more enigmatic entities. Whatever the truth may be, the haunting of Grandma's house still remains a mystery. Summer break had arrived, and my children started preparing to spend the upcoming 2 weeks with their father. After breakfast at the old family house, I had one last chore for them to help me with before the trip: to clean the 2 bedrooms upstairs in Grandma's old house. You should have seen the look on their faces. First it was dread, which suddenly turned into excitement. Since they were old enough to remember the ghost stories here, it sparked their curiosity to see if any of it was true. The house had been the subject of countless ghost stories, and while we were all somewhat apprehensive about stepping foot inside, our family's deep connection to the place made us resolute in our commitment. This house, with its time-worn facade and the echoes of past generations, held a special place in our hearts. That night, at dinner, one of my children proposed an idea. Why don't we take a camera upstairs and see if we can capture any ghosts or something? He flashed a mischievous grin, the kind only a child can wear when proposing something both thrilling and terrifying. I pondered the suggestion for a moment. The idea of embarking on a paranormal adventure was enticing, but I couldn't help feeling a shiver of unease. Nevertheless, I couldn't resist the allure of the unknown. "All right," I finally said, giving in to the excitement. "Let's do it." This morning, after breakfast, we made our way upstairs, camera in hand, determined to unravel the mysteries of the old house. As I ascended the creaky wooden stairs, my heart raced with a mixture of anticipation and trepidation. During the entire time we cleaned, however, there were no signs of any otherworldly presence. No strange sounds, no eerie sightings, just the musty scent of time-worn wood and faded memories. That night, we huddled together to watch the recorded footage. We were unprepared for what we would uncover. The camera had captured something that defied explanation, something that sent a shiver down our spines. In the midst of the recording, a small orb darted across the room like a blur. as if it were desperately trying to evade the camera's lens. It moved with an otherworldly grace, flickering in and out of sight before vanishing entirely. We watched in astonishment, our hearts pounding, as the camera had somehow managed to capture this ethereal anomaly. But the strangeness didn't end there. In one corner of the bedroom, a transparent image began to materialize. A ghostly face, etched with the lines of age and wisdom. It was the face of an old woman, her features soft and hauntingly familiar. She seemed to gaze at us with eyes that held the weight of time. As we continued to watch, a chill settled over us. The most unsettling revelation awaited us in the final moments of the recording. In the exact spot where my youngest son had been standing, an apparition appeared. A baby, hovering above his left shoulder. Its translucent form exuded an otherworldly presence, a spectral reminder of a life that had been cut tragically short. The significance of these haunting revelations began to dawn on us. The old family home, with its century-old history, had been a witness to countless moments of joy and sorrow. It had been the backdrop for the stories of our ancestors, each one leaving an indelible mark on the house's very foundation. The family's history within these walls had been marked by numerous deaths, spanning across all ages and generations. Among them was the unresolved tragedy of a baby's death nearly 50 years ago. A sorrow that had never truly found closure. As my children embarked on their visitation with their father, my cousin, who lived next door to the old family home, paid me a visit. He had experienced a profound loss just 2 years prior, when his daughter tragically lost her life in a car accident. His eyes held a mixture of grief and wonder as he shared something he had discovered. He pulled out his laptop and showed me a video that his son had captured on his phone. It was an image that defied belief and left my heart heavy. The video showed his deceased daughter hovering over him from behind, her presence unmistakable. He explained that she had appeared only once, offering him a moment of solace and connection. As I listened to him, a chilling realization washed over me. The old family house, standing as it had for over a century, had become a repository of souls. A place where the spirits of family members who had passed away over the years found refuge, solace, and perhaps even connection. Fast forward 1 year later. It was another hot summer. It was in the middle of August, which, here in the south, is the hottest part of the year. I'd been talking with a friend for a while about repairs needing to be done to the downstairs hallway. The floor was rotting so bad that in some places your foot would go right through the floor. We need to get that fixed right away. So her cousin came over to look at the house. I was at work when they came, but my mum was home to talk with them and go over everything that needed to be done. It was only minutes later, my friend's cousin ran out of the house and straight to the car. He claimed he was freezing and that he kept feeling like he was being watched. He was terrified and refused to ever come back. My friend said that as they were going down the road, her cousin kept insisting to turn the heater on. For miles, she said he was freezing to death. The stories and encounters within this old house's walls were not merely figments of our imagination or the product of superstition. They were echoes of a past that refused to fade, whispers from the other side that spoke of the enduring bond between the living and the departed. As I continued to care for the old family house, I couldn't help but feel a sense of reverence for the generations that had come before us. The house had become a bridge, a portal through which we could glimpse the lives and spirits of our ancestors. It was a place where the past and the present converged, where the line between the living and the departed blurred, and where the legacy of our family continued to unfold in mysterious and poignant ways. Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed the video. And if you have a scary story that you would like featured on this channel, let me know in the comments below. Thank you.